What if that pristine white sand beach hammock you are constantly dreaming about is actually killing you?
Right, because we are constantly told that stress is just the ultimate enemy of modern life.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we picture a high-pressure job or a heavy workload, and we immediately think, well, that pressure is exactly what is going to put me in an early grave.
But today we're looking at research and some pretty heavy philosophical arguments suggesting the exact opposite.
Which is wild. Like, what if the very thing you are constantly told to avoid, stress, pressure, friction, what if that is actually the exact thing your brain biologically requires to survive?
Yeah, what if the real silent killer isn't the pressure of a deadline, but the slow, corrosive decay of boredom?
It completely shatters the paradigm we've all been sold.
It really does. I mean, we treat pure, uninterrupted relaxation as the ultimate antidote to the modern world. We crave this void of responsibility.
Oh, absolutely.
But the biological and psychological reality of human nature tells a very different story about what actually keeps us vital.
Okay, let's unpack this because we are getting into some incredibly fascinating territory today.
We really are.
Welcome to this deep dive where we are taking a close, analytical look at some powerful insights from the renowned author Robert Greene.
You likely know him for his massive, sweeping books on strategy, human nature, and power.
Right, and our mission today is to dig into an incredibly unconventional, maybe even slightly ruthless, but highly effective philosophy he lays out regarding mastering the human mind.
Yeah, we are going to explore his takes on radical self-control, how to accurately read the true character of the people around you, and why everything we think we know about stress might be dead wrong.
And Greene's advice isn't just standard, hustle culture grinding for the sake of buying a nicer car.
No, not at all. It's a profound observation of human neurobiology and psychology.
He is looking at how the brain actually functions best in its environment, rather than how we wish it functioned in some utopian, frictionless world.
Which brings us right to this wild baseline assumption about the human experience, how we interact with pressure.
Yeah, Greene makes this incredibly blunt statement in the source material. He says the brain absolutely needs pressure. It literally requires constant pressure and stress to function.
And he acknowledges the dominant societal narrative, right? The constant drumbeat that you need to relax, you need to chill out, because stress will kill you.
Right. But his counterargument is that being bored, having absolutely nothing to do, is actually far more dangerous.
So to understand why he says this, we have to separate the physical sensation of stress from the psychological context of that stress.
Oh, it's a good distinction.
Yeah, he concedes that you can work in a way that is utterly destructive. Specifically, he mentions working where there is like no soul involved.
Ugh, the soul-crushing grind.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of rote, meaningless grind where you have no agency and no passion, that is detrimental.
Because it just triggers cortisol without a release valve, right?
Right. But he dramatically contrasts that with purpose-driven stress.
Yeah.
The friction of doing something you genuinely care about, where the pressure is a byproduct of your own ambition.
And he illustrates this with a deeply personal, almost shocking anecdote. Like, he talks about how he works, in his words, like a fiend when he is writing a book.
Yeah, he admits the process is incredibly hard for him. He works far too much, but he loves it.
It's fantastic to him. But then he drops this bomb. He says the stress literally contributed to him having a stroke.
A massive medical event.
Right. But he unequivocally states that he would rather die under the stress of doing something he loves than be bored and have nothing to do.
It is a staggering admission. It forces us to look at the sheer terror he feels toward apathy.
It really does.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture of how the brain operates, it makes a strange kind of sense.
How so?
Well, the human brain is an organ that evolved entirely to solve problems, to overcome obstacles, and to navigate incredibly complex, dangerous environments.
So it needs something to push against.
Exactly. When you remove all obstacles, when you introduce profound, unending boredom, the brain doesn't just sit there happily conserving energy, it begins to atrophy. The neurological craving for a challenge is deeply embedded in our survival mechanisms. Purpose-driven stress keeps the neural pathways firing. It keeps the system vital.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate for you listening right now because I
Oh.
can hear the alarm bells going off.
Fair enough.
The man had a stroke, a major life-threatening breaking of the brain's vascular system tied directly to his workload.
Right.
And he still comes out the other side saying it's better than boredom. Like, is he glorifying burnout here? I struggle to see how we shouldn't view that as a cautionary tale rather than a blueprint.
Yeah, I hear that, but I don't think he is glorifying the medical consequence at all. I think he is illustrating the absolute extremity of his philosophy.
Okay.
To him, the alternative, waking up with no purpose, no challenge, no mountain to climb, is a fate worse than death.
Right.
Think of it like a high-performance sports car. You can drive it at maximum speed on a track. That causes immense wear and tear on the engine. Parts will break.
Because it's running so hot.
Exactly. But that car was built to run hot. Contrast that with taking that same sports car, parking it in a damp garage, and leaving it there for 10 years.
Oh, I see where you're going.
The engine rusts, the seals rot, the battery dies. The car is destroyed not by use, but by neglect.
Wow.
Greene is essentially arguing that the human mind is that sports car. He prefers the wear and tear of the track over the slow, agonizing rust of the garage.
The rusting machine image is perfect. It really highlights the difference between soul-crushing stress, where you are resting away at a job you hate, and purpose-driven stress.
Yeah, where you might be running the engine dangerously hot, but you are actually fulfilling your design.
Okay, so if we accept this premise, if purpose-driven stress and friction are actually biologically necessary for us to avoid rusting out, the obvious next question is, what should we be stressing about?
And the source material provides a very clear, uncompromising answer to that. We should be stressing about the painful, grueling acquisition of skills and knowledge.
Greene describes knowledge and skills as being like gold. They are a currency.
A currency that eventually transforms into something far more valuable than you can even imagine in the moment.
But he gives a really stark warning with this, right?
Yeah, he says the time you spend not learning, the time you waste choosing the hammock over the friction, will eventually catch up with you. And when it does, the fall will be incredibly painful.
Which brings us to the agonizing reality of focus, especially in the early stages of our lives or careers.
Greene points out that for young people, focusing on skill acquisition is deeply, intensely painful.
It's painful for a very specific social reason, though. Like when you are 22, sitting in a room wrestling with some difficult concept or practicing a craft, the little radar in your brain is telling you that everybody else is out having a great time.
Oh, the FOMO is real.
It's so real.
Yeah.
You are missing out. You are deviating from the fun. It is physically and emotionally uncomfortable to stay seated and focus when your peer group is at a party.
It is. But he offers a 3-year timeline to contextualize that immediate pain. He suggests keeping your mind on the larger issue. In 3 years, those friends who seem to be having so much effortless fun, who are aggressively avoiding the friction of skill building, they are going to be sliding down the ladder.
He literally says they will end up stuck in some crap job precisely because they didn't acquire the currency of skills when they had the time.
Meanwhile, the person who endured the pain of focus will be rising, and the biological payoff is massive.
How so?
The brain eventually rewards that intense focus and mastery with incredible pleasure. When things finally click, the dopamine and satisfaction are profound. It far outlasts the cheap dopamine of a night out.
To illustrate this, Greene shares his own story, which is frankly kind of comforting for anyone who feels totally lost right now.
Yeah, his wilderness years.
Exactly. He graduated from college and essentially had zero guidance. No mentor tapped him on the shoulder and said, hey, here is your exact path in life. Here is what your brain is suited for.
And he had studied ancient Greek and Latin.
Right, which he notes trained him to think in terms of thousands of years. He didn't want to write something for next week. He wanted to write something that would be read in the year 3020.
That is an incredibly lofty, almost paralyzing perspective to carry around as a young person with no job.
I mean, when you are thinking in millennia, how do you even begin a Tuesday morning?
You wander.
You wander. And that is exactly what he did. He had this grand vision, but absolutely no practical application. So he wanders all over Europe with a backpack.
London, Paris, Ireland, Greece, Spain.
He tries teaching English. He tries to write a novel in Paris, but completely fails because he has zero discipline. It just didn't work.
And predictably, he starts to get really depressed. He was miserable and he didn't know why.
But this is where the magic of unconscious skill acquisition happens.
He didn't realize it at the time, but he was building what he calls a brick-by-brick foundation.
Right, so he pivots out of the failed novel and tries journalism.
And what does journalism teach him? It forces him to learn how to write under immense pressure, under strict deadlines.
It provides the external discipline he lacked in Paris.
Exactly. It teaches him how to craft a dramatic opening sentence that forces the reader to keep going.
Then he pivots again and goes to work in Hollywood. And there, he learns an entirely different set of skills.
High-level research.
Yep. He learns theatricality, how to make things dramatic and visually compelling in the mind's eye.
He learns the deep underlying mechanics of story structure.
So you have this guy who feels like a failure, bouncing from ancient Greek philosophy to a failed novel in Paris, to stressed-out journalism, to Hollywood research. From the outside, his life looks like a complete mess.
It looks like a scattered, incoherent resume. But when the opportunity finally arose for him to sit down and write his defining work, The 48 Laws of Power, suddenly every single one of those seemingly disconnected bricks locked into place.
The strict discipline from journalism,
The narrative theatricality from Hollywood.
the deep historical and philosophical perspective from studying Latin and Greek.
The soil, as he says, was incredibly rich. And because he had laid that groundwork through all those painful, stressful micro-failures, the world opened up for him.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I think about this like compounding interest.
That's a great way to look at it.
You know how when you first start putting money into an investment account, those tiny little deposits seem entirely useless?
Yeah, you look at your balance and think, this is doing nothing. I could just spend this money on a coffee.
Right. But you keep doing it, and eventually you cross a threshold where the math suddenly explodes. The interest starts earning interest.
Yeah.
That is exactly what Greene's brick-by-brick skill acquisition is. Seemingly disjointed skills compounding over time into this massive, completely unique capability that no one else can replicate because no one else took that exact painful path.
That analogy perfectly captures the exponential nature of learning, and Greene brings in actual neuroscience to back this up.
Oh, this is the Jeffrey Schwartz study.
Yes, referencing the work of Dr. Jeffrey Schwartz, a renowned neuroscientist at UCLA. Schwartz was working with patients who had obsessive-compulsive disorder.
Right.
Normally, the treatment for OCD was just heavy medication or standard talk therapy, which often yielded pretty limited results. But Schwartz wanted something more effective.
So what did you do?
He developed specific cognitive strategies for these patients, forcing them to consciously relabel their obsessive thoughts and refocus their attention on a different constructive behavior in the exact moment the compulsion hit.
Okay.
And most importantly, he tracked their progress using functional brain scans.
The results of those brain scans are completely mind-blowing.
They literally changed our understanding of the brain. The scans showed that through the application of these focused strategies, through deliberate thinking and behavioral discipline, the patients literally changed the physical structure of their brains.
Wait, really? The physical structure?
Yes. The metabolic activity in the specific brain circuits associated with OCD actually decreased. As Greene puts it, something non-material, your thoughts, your focus, your willpower, literally changes material things.
It changes the physical matter, the wiring, and the neural connections inside your skull?
Exactly.
If we really pause and think about the philosophical weight of that, I mean, it's staggering. We often think of our brains as just the hardware we were born with, like a computer that can't be upgraded.
Right, you get the processor you get.
But Schwartz's research and Greene's entire philosophy flips that. Your thoughts are the hammer and chisel.
That's a great image.
When you are sitting there in pain, forcing yourself to learn a new skill while your friends are out partying, you are not just acquiring abstract information, you are physically rewiring the meat inside your head.
You are building new physical bridges between neurons that did not exist yesterday.
And that is exactly why, when Greene finally sat down to write his book, he was capable of synthesizing history, dramatic storytelling, and strict deadlines. He had physically built a brain capable of doing it.
If you are serious enough about acquiring skills, you reach a neurological tipping point. The connections have been made. And when an opportunity arises, something amazing sprouts up because the physical, biological groundwork has been laid.
You literally become a different machine.
Exactly.
Okay, so you spend years enduring this purpose-driven stress.
Mm-hmm.
You build the skills, you physically rewire your brain into this high-functioning machine, but that creates a completely new problem.
Right.
How do you actually wield that capability in the real world without sabotaging yourself? According to the source material, you project that internal power to the outside world by heavily restricting what comes out of your mouth.
The mantra he provides for this phase is absolute. Never complain, never explain.
It sounds so simple on a bumper sticker, but it is incredibly difficult to execute in daily life.
It really is. He argues that you should never complain about your life or the hardships you are facing, and you should never explain what you are doing or why you are doing it. You just execute.
Because whining and complaining accomplish exactly one thing. They broadcast weakness to everyone around you. You must let your actions speak entirely for themselves.
This leads directly into his next rule, which is foundational to his philosophy of power. Always say less than necessary.
Oh, this one is huge.
He points out that people who talk too much, who are constantly yammering, as he calls it, project a highly unpowerful aura.
To an outside observer, a person who cannot control their own tongue signals a complete and total lack of self-control in every other aspect of their life.
Right. If you can't contain your words, how can you contain your emotions, your strategy, or your ambitions?
There is a brutal mathematical reality to this, too. Greene points out that the more words you produce, the higher the mathematical probability is that you are going to say something stupid, irrational, or deeply regrettable.
What's fascinating here is the psychology of the yammerer. Why do people feel the need to overtalk and overexplain?
Well, very often it stems from deep anxiety and a desperate need for external validation.
Exactly. When someone is constantly explaining their motives, their background, their feelings, they are essentially asking the listener, do you approve of me? Do you understand me? Am I okay?
It is a subservient posture. It places the power of judgment entirely in the hands of the person listening.
It really does.
It's like a terrible movie trailer. You know those trailers that show you the entire plot of the movie, all the best jokes, the romantic subplot, and even hint heavily at the twist ending?
Oh, I hate those.
Right. After you watch it, you have zero reason to actually go pay to see the film. There is no mystery left. The person who over-explains is that terrible movie trailer.
That is such a good analogy.
The truly powerful person is like an incredibly cryptic teaser trailer. It shows you one striking image, a single line of dialogue, and then cuts to black. It leaves everyone in the theater asking, wait, what does that mean? I have to know more.
That is exactly how Greene describes the behavior of powerful people in social and professional settings. They sit back, they let everyone else in the room talk, argue, emote, and exhaust themselves.
And then occasionally, they will utter something that is slightly ambiguous.
The effect is immediate and profound. It creates an air of mystery. It forces everyone else to lean in, to analyze, to try to decode what they meant.
It projects an aura of total control because they're the only ones not desperate to be understood.
But people hear this advice and naturally push back. The modern impulse is to think, wow, shouldn't I just be able to be myself?
Yeah, shouldn't I be able to say whatever I want and express my authentic feelings at work?
Greene's answer to that is a very cold, hard no. He points out a stark social reality that we often try to ignore. You do not get to just say whatever you want. Not in the social world, and definitely not in the competitive work world.
If you treat your professional environment like a therapy session where you just emote constantly and share every insecurity, it is going to get you in trouble.
You are giving away all your leverage. You are handing everyone around you a map of exactly where your insecurities are.
But this creates a really interesting dilemma. If we are supposed to be using silence and ambiguity to mask our inner workings and project power, and everyone else who is smart is doing the exact same thing, how on earth do you accurately judge the true character of the people you are working with or dating?
That's the million-dollar question. How do you see past the mask they are wearing?
Exactly.
This is where Greene forces us to change our entire metric for evaluation. He argues that we are fundamentally judging people on the wrong criteria.
We tend to judge people based on their intelligence or their charm, or whether they seem like a good or bad person on the surface.
But intelligence and charm are just tools, and surface-level goodness is easily faked. Instead, you must judge them purely on their character, specifically whether their core character is weak or strong.
And he identifies the absolute #1 worst possible trait of a weak character. It is the inability to take criticism.
When someone has a weak character, they cannot handle the psychological friction of being told they are wrong. Their ego is too fragile.
So they immediately build a massive defensive wall around themselves.
They construct a shell, and the danger of this shell is that it allows them to get away with anything over the long term. Because everyone around them learns that offering even mild criticism leads to a massive emotional explosion.
Or a temper tantrum, or a wall of toxic passive aggression, so people just stop trying to correct them.
Exactly. They become entirely insulated from reality.
Let's bring this right to you, listening to this deep dive. Think about the last time you were criticized, maybe by a boss or a partner. Honestly, put yourself in that exact moment.
Yeah, what was your immediate, visceral, physical reaction?
Did your heart rate spike? Did you feel a flush of heat in your neck? Did you immediately start formulating excuses and counterattacks in your head before the other person even finished their sentence?
Did that wall go up?
Right. It is such a common, ingrained human reaction. But Greene is saying it is the ultimate, undeniable tell of weakness.
Contrast that with how he describes a strong character. A person with strong character takes criticism constructively. They can absorb the blow to their ego, process the information, and adapt.
They can work collaboratively in highly stressful situations.
But the most defining trait is how they handle failure. When things go wrong, a weak character looks for a scapegoat. A strong character steps forward and says, I am to blame for this.
As Greene says, they are someone you can genuinely lean on, because beneath the surface there is actually something solid there to support your weight.
Catching these traits in everyday life is incredibly tricky, though. In a normal work situation on a random Tuesday afternoon, a weak person can easily pretend to be strong, agreeable, and competent.
Which is exactly why Greene points to the concept of the stress test. He argues that everyday life allows for immense camouflage, but a crisis reveals the true architectural integrity of a personality.
Under immense stress and high pressure, the mask inevitably falls off. Think of a server crashing on Black Friday or a major project falling apart hours before a deadline.
When the pressure is on, weak people become reactive. They can't get out of the moment. They become impatient, erratic, and deeply fragile.
Their true, brittle nature is exposed for everyone to see.
And power is another massive revealer of true character. He talks about how weak people act as they are climbing the corporate or social ladder.
They play the game perfectly, they pretend to be a team player, they wear the mask of humility, they manage up beautifully.
But the second they actually secure a position of power, the mask drops entirely.
They feel they can finally get away with things they couldn't before because they now have leverage. They become abusive to the people below them.
They treat their subordinates miserably. The power didn't corrupt them, it simply removed the necessity for them to pretend to be a decent person.
A strong character, on the other hand, maintains the exact same character, the exact same decency they had before they got the promotion.
He also gives a couple of other highly specific, almost weirdly accurate indicators to watch out for. He says to look at the kind of partners people choose.
Oh, this one is fascinating.
Right. Does a person consistently choose an inferior spouse or partner just so they can push them around? Do they purposefully surround themselves with people they view as lesser just so they can feel superior and mask their own insecurity?
That is a classic manifestation of deep insecurity masquerading as dominance. And another fascinating indicator he mentions is how people behave in completely meaningless situations outside of work.
Think about playing a casual board game or doing a recreational outdoor activity. Are they hyper-competitive?
Do they absolutely have to win at everything, even when there are zero stakes?
That desperation to dominate in trivial matters is a massive red flag regarding their underlying character. It shows they cannot separate their ego from the outcome of a meaningless event.
But here's my issue with this. If I realize I have some of these weak traits, and let's be honest, we all have moments of defensiveness or trivial competitiveness.
Absolutely.
My instinct is to just try and fake it until I make it. Just stand in the mirror, give myself affirmations, and tell myself I'm confident. Why doesn't that work here? How do we build genuine, strong confidence, according to Greene?
Well, Greene explicitly says you cannot just stand in front of a mirror and lie to yourself. You can't just chant, I am strong, I am powerful.
Because the brain is too smart for that.
Exactly. It knows you are lying.
Yeah.
You need actual empirical evidence to build genuine confidence. His solution is surprisingly practical. He says you must look back into your own past and find a genuine success. Everyone, he argues, has at least one moment where they did something well, where they succeeded and felt competent.
Even if it was something incredibly minor, like acing a test years ago or throwing a great pass in a high school football game.
Yeah, the scale of the success doesn't matter as much as the emotional reality of it. He compares this technique to how method actors work.
Oh, that makes sense.
When a method actor needs to cry on screen, they don't just pretend to be sad. They go back into their own memories, they recall the death of a pet or a deeply tragic personal moment, and they literally call that specific, genuine emotion back up to the surface.
So Greene says you must do the exact same thing with confidence. You pull up the memory of that past success. You feel the specific emotion of competence and victory that you felt in that moment, and you use that real emotional memory as the foundation for your confidence today.
It is rooted in reality, not delusion.
So what fuels all of this? We've talked about enduring the friction of skill building. We've talked about projecting power through silence and the aggression required to conquer our own weaknesses.
The source material finally turns to how these raw, potent energies are viewed by modern society. specifically in the context of young men.
Now, and just to be clear to you listening, we are exploring this strictly through the lens of Greene's cultural commentary and observation. We aren't taking a political side here.
Right, absolutely. We're just unpacking his analysis of a massive cultural tension regarding ambition and aggression.
It is a highly relevant observation, though. Greene argues that young men today feel profoundly lost. And the root cause of this, he suggests, is because their natural biological drives, things like testosterone, competitiveness, ambition, and aggression, are currently being culturally labeled as strictly and inherently negative.
He paints a vivid picture of a young man with all this natural energy roaring through his system. He wants to assert himself, he has goals, he wants to conquer something.
But the cultural messaging he receives constantly tells him that energy is bad. You are not supposed to be like that. Society is signaling to him that there is no virtue in masculinity anymore.
Greene is very careful to acknowledge that toxic masculinity is a very real destructive phenomenon. It definitely exists.
But his argument is that in our societal effort to stamp out the toxic elements, we have completely lost the icons and role models of masculine virtue.
We threw the baby out with the bathwater. We demonize the energy itself rather than the misapplication of it.
He contrasts this current environment with the icons he had growing up. He talks about watching old westerns and points to the archetype of the silent hero.
He specifically mentions Gary Cooper.
Right. This is the archetype of a man who is incredibly capable, deeply strong, but completely in control of himself.
And this is where Greene redefines what true masculine virtue looks like. It is not about dominating others or being loud and aggressive. According to him, true masculine virtue is about being in complete control of oneself.
It is about being decent. And very specifically, he emphasizes that it is about treating women well.
This is such a critical point to highlight. He explains that treating women well, respecting them, is actually a manifestation of true strength.
It comes from a position of deep security in one's own masculinity. If you are genuinely secure and powerful, you do not need to put other people down to feel significant.
Cruelty and the need to demean women or push people around do not stem from having too much masculinity. They stem from a profound insecurity.
They are the frantic actions of a weak character desperately trying to simulate strength because they lack the real thing.
But the cultural problem, as Greene sees it, is that society currently presents young men with a terrible false dichotomy.
On one side, you have figures like Andrew Tate, who represent an uncontrolled, often highly toxic manifestation of these drives.
And on the other side, you have men who are entirely terrified of expressing any masculinity, assertiveness, or ambition at all.
Young men are caught in the middle of these two extremes, completely confused about what to do with their energy.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of everything we have discussed today, Greene's overarching philosophy on this becomes very clear. Energy is inherently neutral.
Like a nuclear reactor.
Precisely. The raw uranium, the testosterone, the aggression, the fierce ambition is just fuel. It is neither good nor bad on its own.
The tragedy isn't that the fuel exists. The tragedy is the lack of a proper engine to channel it into.
Aggression and assertiveness are the very energies that get things done in the world. They are the fuels that motivate you, that push you to endure the agonizing pain of acquiring skills during those wilderness years.
They only become negative and toxic when they are uncontrolled and undirected. Therefore, Greene argues, self-control is the ultimate masculine quality.
He brings this all the way back to his own life to prove the point.
Okay.
He talks about how much anger and aggression he felt towards the world during those miserable years he spent wandering and failing.
He had this sharp edge, this feeling of, damn you, I don't really like you, aimed at the manipulative, cruel people he encountered in Hollywood and journalism.
But he didn't use that aggression to go out and physically hurt people or be abusive or become a toxic boss.
He channeled it. He took all of that raw, aggressive energy, all of that resentment and observation of human cruelty, and poured it directly into his work.
It is the ultimate irony. The very aggression and anger he felt toward the cruel, manipulative world became the exact high-octane fuel he used to sit down and write The 48 Laws of Power.
He used his art to meticulously dissect and expose how people manipulate and deceive. He weaponized his aggression into a historical masterpiece instead of a fistfight.
It is the perfect example of transformation through friction. He notes that intense sports are another valid outlet for this energy, but the core lesson is universal.
You must find a way to channel your natural, assertive energies into something constructive. To deny the energy exists is to become weak, depressed, and apathetic.
And to let it run wild is to become destructive and toxic. To channel it through radical self-control is to become truly powerful.
So what does this all mean for us?
When we pull all these threads together, the central theme weaving through every single piece of Greene's advice is this powerful concept of transformation through friction.
The brain requires the stress of pressure to transform and stay vital, avoiding the rust of boredom.
Disparate, painful, confusing life experiences transform into a unique, unstoppable skill set if you endure the focus.
Choosing silence and ambiguity over yammering transforms your outward identity into an aura of power.
And raw, aggressive energy, when subjected to the ultimate virtue of disciplined self-control, transforms into world-changing ambition and art.
It is a cohesive philosophy that demands a lot from the individual. It demands that you stop running from discomfort and start viewing friction as the very mechanism of your own evolution.
It really does. And before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building on that incredible neuroscience study we talked about earlier.
Oh, Dr. Jeffrey Schwartz's work.
Exactly. He proved that focused, deliberate thought like practicing a difficult skill or consciously redirecting an obsession physically changes the wiring and matter of your brain. It builds physical neural pathways of discipline and capability.
This raises a deeply unsettling question about our modern environment.
It does. If it is true that our thoughts physically rewire our brains, what exactly is happening to the physical structure of our brains when we spend 4, 5, 6 hours a day scrolling through social media? When we marinate our minds in the digital yammering, the constant complaining, the trivial arguments, and the desperate need for immediate external validation that Greene warned us against.
If we physically become what we focus on, are we passively rewiring our own brains for the exact kind of weakness, reactivity, and fragility that guarantees we'll fail the stress tests of life?
It is a chilling application of neuroplasticity. If deliberate skill acquisition builds a mental fortress, constant trivial distraction might literally be dismantling it, microscopic connection by microscopic connection.
Something to really think about the next time you find yourself reaching for your phone just to avoid a moment of boredom.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. As you go through your day, try to just observe your own reactions. Notice how you respond to a moment of stress.
Notice what happens in your body the next time someone criticizes you.
Do you reach for the hammock to escape, or do you lean into the friction? Until next time.